Communicating, the secondary series, D.C. Heath, Dynamics of Language, the Language of Man series, the Man series, both McDougall-Littell series, the Communication Interacting Through Speech series. There's another speech book that falls into the speech book that falls into the same category. The Interaction series by Houghton Mifflin Company. All of these, I think, are very objectionable. I'm not sure that I've hit on all of them at all, but I can tell you that I consider those very objectionable.
And what does that do? Do you have any idea what that does, the total list?
It takes away quite a bit of it. I would propose a solution to the problem would be to remove these books for the remainder of the school year and to go back to the old textbooks that we used last year and allow time for a review and for an establishment of guidelines in which to judge these books and establish a basis for judging books in the future, and that we would take action on our English adoption at the same time that we take action on our social studies adoption.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I realize we do, that's why I didn't put it in the form of a motion.
Any further discussion on the motion?
I'm done, and so have you.
I'm sorry, talking about how society made him what he is and how he loves his fellow man, and no matter how much his fellow man hates him, he's going to continue to love them. Charles Manson is the one with his with his gang of women who went in and slaughtered people in Hollywood, made all the national press, all the news, all of our children know it. And we are defending, or we let this man defend himself in a textbook. I don't see anything on the other side of the issue. I looked through the book and I didn't see anything to suggest that Mr. Manson, what's his name, might be wrong. Now don't tell me that these books don't tell them to go out and join the revolution. I've read too much of it. They tell them to destroy the Constitution.
Mr. President, I'd like for you to call for the question, and as soon as you get the vote, which I rather surmise what it's going to be, would you let me finish my motion?
Complete my motion.
And you will find
Don't quote me
your
unless you
motion.
complete it.
You will find the motion.
You'll have your chance to rebut.
She then revised this not to purchase until she had read the books. In my opinion, it's a grave error on her part. Then on...
I know that I have never knowingly agreed to put into the classroom a textbook that tells a student to go out and get a gun and join the revolution.
The religious or ethical philosophy from being taught in the classroom. My purpose of this motion, the amendment to the motion, is to prohibit the introduction into the classroom of any particular religious or ethical value system, regardless of the student's feelings about that particular religious or ethical value system. I think my motion is in accord with the Supreme Court.
What's your reaction to what happened here today?
I'm very much surprised that nothing more was done than has been done. We have left the communicating books in the library for use in the schools. The only thing that's been removed is the fourth level interaction, require them to come to school and report on their problems at home, their arguments and their disagreements with their parents, materials that require students to role play in the classroom having an argument or a disagreement with their parent in order to try to change their parents' minds about something that they have some particular value that the parents want to instill in their children, things that would cause children to rebel against authority.
They also said that though not all these books would be taken out of school across the board, that no student would have to read any textbook that he or his parents objected to. Was this at least a partial victory for the people who oppose these books?
Not really. Not really. There's no way parents can screen everything that's used in the schools. The only way we can control a situation of this type is to have guidelines like the guidelines that I proposed, specifically prohibiting certain kinds of materials for use in the schools. I don't think we can legally in the schools teach sedition, and we have textbooks that teach sedition and encourage sedition. I don't think we can, perhaps we can, I don't know, perhaps we can. If a parent objects to some particular textbook, they can tell the teacher, and their child is not supposed to be involved or to have to use that textbook. So what do we do? Does the child hold his hand up and say, I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith, my mother doesn't want me to read that book. I've got to leave the room? I know what happens to a child like that. I know what happens to students who are the babies in the class, who are too immature to read certain materials. They're the laughingstock of the schools.
You believe the opponents of the textbooks are going to be satisfied with what
What about urging students to stay away from school? Isn't that lawlessness?
I have never urged students to stay away from school.
What are you urging?
I have never urged it. I have simply never urged students to and legally do these things, but I object personally to using materials in the classroom that encourage students to rebel against proper or duly constituted authority, or encourage students to act in a lawless manner by upholding or approving of lawlessness, or materials that present evil or immoral behavior in a light of approval.
Do you think that the two resolutions that were passed then are meaningless?
For the most part, yes. For the most part, the only thing we've said is that if in books, we have left some of the most objectionable material, some of the material that has upset parents most, right back in our classrooms. We've made very few changes.
What kind of material?
Some that is vulgar, a lot of profanity, a lot of very offensive materials from the standpoint of being violent, materials that require students to criticize their parents in the classroom. I am suggesting that parents may now be forced to the position of educating their own children in their own homes. Most of us can't provide